Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 109. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, March Madness underway. My bracket's already busted. Hopefully yours is doing better, and same with the listeners out there. So how's the bracket? How's the Friday, Dave?
All right. Happy Friday. Happy Spaghetti Day in our household. Going to have the quad box on the YouTube TV going today for the games. I'm going to hit you with I'm going to come in hot at you this morning here. Do you know where High Point University is?
I do now. At least I think most of the country. It's in one of the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina, one of the two. Is that
North Carolina?
North Carolina.
Yeah, just outside of I think Greensboro and Winston-Salem. I did not know that. I did not even know they were a Division I school until yesterday.
I've been watching them lately because they play a lot on Sunday around noon. They had the conference tourney, I think, then. I've seen a couple of their games, and I still did not pick them to win. I had Wisconsin in the Final Four, so my bracket's already just shot after day one. So hopefully yours is in better shape.
Oh, I hate to hear that, being as how we got a group going there. I'm okay with mine. I think that was one of the games that I bounced back and forth with the kombucha face of, because everybody talks about, what was it, a 12-5, matchup and all like that. And I must have changed that thing in my bracket like 5 different times. I said, nah, okay, yeah, nah. And then I finally, as a settle for, I picked Wisconsin, but then I had Wisconsin going out in the next round. So feel a little bit better about that. But
what was your prediction for the championship game? What was your final two teams and winner?
I have Arizona obviously winning it all against who did I pick in there? Arizona beating Duke.
Okay. I have Michigan over Houston, so that's my track to stay alive in my brackets.
And Duke almost got a little bit of a surprise yesterday as well too. They had to come on late to win that game. But all right, people don't tune in to learn about our basketball picks and our lack of knowledge there. So we do have a little bit of quite a few different topics to talk about when it comes to the Steelers here. And I'm going to come in hot at you one more time here before we get started with some things. There's a lot of conversation I saw yesterday not yesterday, I think 2 days ago on ESPN Live, talking about all the trades that have happened around the NFL, since the new league year started, and how trades are up over the years prior to the NFL draft taking place. Do you have a theory as to why we are seeing an increase in trades around the NFL for this time of year?
There's a couple different schools of thought there. One, just it's a bit of a snowball effect as one team and as teams in general get more comfortable, becomes more common and a little less, I don't know what the phrase is, but a little less not looked down upon. But just as it becomes more common, more trades beget more trades. And also I think there's a prevailing theory that as you have a lot of younger GMs in the NFL, 10, 15 years, you had a lot of older heads, guys in their 50s, 60s, more conservative, more willing to stand pat. Younger GMs are now willing to come and be aggressive, make some more quote-unquote radical moves that has increased the number of trades.
All right. I agree with a lot of what you said. Adam Schefter, I think specifically, was kind of asked about this, and he talked about how a lot of these GMs nowadays, a lot of them went up through the scouting ranks, and then, kind of the fraternity and them knowing each other a lot more comfortable, as opposed to years gone by, probably not being the case. And
But didn't the old heads come up with the old heads too? Isn't that all the same? Is that any different?
Yeah, probably. But with the age of social media and connectivity, it's easier to connect with these guys, over the years and stay in contact, I would guess, along those lines. So I think that was some of his theory on it as well. And then you see who was it? The Les Snead F these picks and kind of that mentality and where that got the Rams there for a while. So I think that plays into it. I agree with just the more aggressive nature, but I think too at the root of this here is, over the years, we've seen, the free agency classes are usually, at least in the last, I don't know what, 5 to 7 years, have been kind of bland. The guys that when you get closer or after a season ends, you start looking at, well, this guy and this guy might be the top of the class if they don't get franchised. Well, usually the guys worth the salt of keeping usually end up getting franchised, and it seems kind of, the free agency classes, at least at the top of them, are just not as appealing maybe as they once were. And then, obviously too, you got the high risk of it becomes a bidding war where generally teams have to, quote unquote, I guess, overpay to get some of the top free agents in their door. That usually comes along with more guaranteed money on top of it. So I think there's just the notion that, hey, which way are we better off going? We better off going the route of trading for a guy that maybe we really want, that if he were to hit free agency, we probably wouldn't be able to be in the market for. I just think a lot of that, all of that is kind of playing into it here. As to the reason why you're seeing it here, but it is quite notable, some of the stats that they threw up there about how trades have increased this time of year as opposed to, let's say, 5-7 years ago here. So I just wanted to get your take on that to start things off.
Yeah, it's a good conversation, one worth having this time of year. And as you referenced, the Les Snead, the Rams approach of F them picks that helped them win a Super Bowl. And so a lot of teams will follow footsteps. What are the teams who have won most recently? What is the model? And they've been more aggressive trading capital for players to help you win now. They've done that this year with Trent McDuffie. So probably teams also trying to mimic the model of the current NFL successors.
And obviously, we've seen the Steelers kind of a shift in what they've done last 2 off seasons, specifically when it comes to DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman as well too. Do you think Michael Pitt? Here's another question for you: had the Steelers not been interested in trading for him and executing that trade for Michael Pittman Jr., do you think by now Michael Pittman Jr. would have been cut, or do you think there was potentially another team in play? Do you think they went to? I'm going to shoot a lot of questions at you. Do you think? Do you think the Colts went to Michael Pittman? I would imagine he didn't have any kind of a trade veto or whatnot in his contract. Normally you don't see that with kind of players of his stature. But do you think they kind of? Do you think there might have been multiple teams interested in trading for him that may have been able to work out similar contracts with him, and then give Michael Pittman maybe the final say of where he wanted to go? I know it's a lot of questions right in a row, but I guess looking at it, had Michael Pittman Jr. actually been cut by the Colts, something that I think we both agreed was a possibility heading into the start of the new league year, would the Steelers had a legitimate shot to get him as a street free agent?
Yeah, it's a lot of questions there. I think he would have been cut if they couldn't find a trade partner with the Alec Pierce deal and the magnitude of that contract. They weren't going to keep Pierce. I think Pierce even admitted that that's where the winds were blowing. Was there a market for him? It was probably really light, considering the Colts got basically nothing for him in return, a 16 pick swap, moved up 16 spots. So probably maybe one other team could have been involved, but certainly not much of a market. Would there have been more of a market in free agency had he been cut? Sure. But I think it was overall a pretty light market, and, Pittman was not going to be a Colt in 2026. And can I throw some more information at you, Dave? Probably some sad news you may be seeing just coming across my timeline right now. Chuck Norris, iconic action star, has died at 86 years old, according to Variety. I know he was hospitalized the other day. and I don't know exactly the nature of what happened there, but the Norris family releasing a statement just a short couple minutes ago that Chuck Norris has died at 86.
Oh boy, what an icon he was growing up through
Mhm.
my era, through the action movies and fighting movies and all along those lines there. And that's I saw where he got hospitalized, but I did not know the seriousness of it. So yeah, quite a development there, quite a news story.
Let the Chuck Norris jokes and memes fly on the internet today to celebrate his well-lived life.
Uh-huh.
All right, so back to Michael Pittman. Yeah, I think he was going to be cut. It was inevitable. There would have been some market for him on the open market, but in terms of the option trade route, I think it was pretty light, and that's why Pittsburgh got him for so cheap.
All right, got my hot shots at you out of the way there. Which direction now?
Let's go to the NFL draft. That'll be the focus primarily of the show today. Pittsburgh bringing in 2 more players for visits officially. We know some more are on the way. Yesterday, the team hosted 2 players for pre-draft visits, and they were Pitt linebacker Kyle Louis and Illinois defensive lineman James Thompson. Now, Louis is a local visit. He does not count against Pittsburgh's allotted 30 because he is from, of course, Pittsburgh and played for the Panthers. Thompson, a combine snub with a good frame Pittsburgh looks for in the position, and we'll do a report on him. It's already being worked on by our Josh Carney. I know Thompson had a good pro day workout. They were at that Illinois pro day. Pittsburgh had a scout out there, and so Pittsburgh looking at some D-line help. Thompson put up 36 reps on the bench press, so he's a big, strong guy.
Yeah, I think you and I just kind of briefly glossed over Thompson several weeks ago. May have been in some of the Shrine Bowl talk and all. Maybe specifically after the Shrine Bowl heights and weights came out. He, on paper, at least from a measurable standpoint, looks like a guy the Steelers would be interested in. He matches up in that area. I think a little bit shorter arms. What are like 32-inch arms? So I think he comes in a little shorter than that, but a little shorter than kind of ideal when it comes to that body type and all there. But guy's got some interesting tape. A guy that I think came out of the Wisconsin program, so I'm sure the Steelers have had some familiarity with him, being that there's the links back to the Wisconsin program and how the Steelers have drafted several of those players coming out of that program the last numerous years there. This guy, I tell you, if you're looking for a guy in your mock drafts to fit in somewhere, I guess, in day 3, as maybe a more pass rushing type guy, Thompson certainly fits the bill there. So this is a guy that I've had kind of circled in the background coming out of Shrine Bowl. I do kind of consider he wasn't. Look, you can go through the list of combine snubs and build a pretty good list every year. And James Thompson, I don't think would be at the top of most people's list, but I think if you got outside of maybe your top 3 or 4 combine snubs, I think you have to look hard and long at Thompson as being a potential snub, specifically for the fact too that you look at the guys that normally go to the Shrine in the Senior Bowl, and if some of those guys, especially the height, weight, speed, measurable guys, don't end up in that had some level of production, and especially if they're coming out of I guess we call it Power 4 now, type of school. You can make legitimate arguments that they were snubs. So that's where I am at with Thompson. If this team waits a while, look, we don't know how many picks they're going to make. They got 12 on the board right now. This team could use a more true nose tackle, obviously. But if this team ends up having more than, let's say, eight ends up making more than 8 selections in this draft, and they want to address kind of various positions, I really think Thompson should be on people's mock drafts, at least horizon and potentially list there of a day 3 guy that the Steelers could look at.
And he was, as you mentioned, beginning his career at Wisconsin, spent most of his time with the Badgers and was teammates with Nick Herbig and Keanu Benton, and maybe even Loudermilk. Was he teammates with Isaiah Loudermilk for maybe a season or 2? I'm not sure if that timeline fits or not.
Oh, Loudermilk's been around for, it feels like if they crossed paths, it probably wouldn't have been for long there.
His Loudermilk's last season and Thompson's freshman season, they were teammates there. So now obviously Loudermilk is a free agent and not yet been re-signed by
Right.
Pittsburgh, but just the point being Pittsburgh loving their Wisconsin Badgers defensive players. Of course, DJ Watt also being one of them, not teammates with Thompson in college, but Thompson was at Wisconsin 2020 to 2024 and then transferred to Illinois for 2025, had 41 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and a pair of sacks. So yeah, interesting day 3 guy that certainly seems to check some of the boxes. And although the arm length is a little bit shorter than ideal, you're right about that, exactly at 32 inches at his pro day. Pittsburgh has been seeming to sacrifice a little bit of arm length to keep height. Talk about guys like Loudermilk or like a Logan Lee, guys that were taller but a little bit shorter, a little stubbier in terms of their arm length. Pittsburgh seems to value height a little more than arm length if they're forced to choose.
Let's see. He had 2 sacks last year at Illinois. I think he had 7 during his boy. He was in college for a long time. Didn't realize he goes all the way back to 2020 at Wisconsin there. But yeah, I mean, I think and I watched a little bit of his pro day interview on YouTube after the news came out that he was coming in and all like that. And it seems like a high quality character guy as well too. So anywhere probably starting, I don't know, late round 4, early round 5 is when this guy's going to, I think, look attractive on the board to some teams and specifically to a team like the Steelers.
Right, and the reason why he was in college so long, at least one of the reasons, 6 years in total, he missed basically all of the, 2024 season with an upper body injury, played in just 1 game and had a medical redshirt because of it. I don't know exactly the nature of the injury. While Josh Carney's writing the report, we tried to do thorough backgrounds on the injury history, so he might be able to suss out details on that, but had a medical redshirt that allowed him to come back for 25, transferred to Illinois, and had a good season. So we'll keep an eye on James Thompson Jr. By the way, I should mention he is a junior. The other player coming in was Kyle Louis, who people that follow the Pitt Panthers should know well. Hyper athletic linebacker, a little undersized, a little bit of that mold of linebacker, safety, exactly what is he, but highly productive, especially in the past game. 6 interceptions over the past 2 years and a real impact player for the Panthers defense.
Yeah, this should definitely be a 2nd or 3rd round guy, I think, where he ends up going in the draft, and being as how he's a Pitt product, not overly surprising that the Steelers are bringing him in as a local guy. Could be, we'll see what kind of flavor the Steelers go after as potentially a linebacker, but he is very, very productive, very athletic guy, really stood out so far during the pre-draft process, and particularly at the combine there. So yeah, I don't think it's a big surprise, especially with him being a local kid, that the Steelers were able to bring him in for a visit.
You expecting Pittsburgh to draft an inside linebacker? Because right now they have 5 they could just run into the season, assuming that Patrick Queen remains a Steeler and Malik Harrison remains a Steeler, and so far there's been nothing to suggest otherwise.
Look, I think with this, as deep as this class is, as we talked about coming out of the workouts at the combine and all, I think whether you need one or not, this is a good year to probably take one at some point.
It is a
Especially,
good class.
especially when you have, I mean, right now, obviously 12 picks on the board. We'll see how the wheeling and dealing goes and how many picks they end up taking. But yeah, I think this is a very good class, and there's all types of shapes and sizes and skill sets in there. And at worst, you can probably get you a very good special teams player. And Patrick Queen, final year of his contract as we sit here right now. Even if Holcomb makes this team, this might be it for him. You still don't know I mean, Bruner's more of a depth piece at this point, special teams player. You just don't have Malik Harrison might not even make the 53-man roster.
And last year of his contract signed a 2-year deal.
Yeah, last year of his contract as well too. So, short answer, yeah, I expect him at some point to address this position in a draft. Now, it might not be early, but definitely starting. I would say the way way the roster looks right now, I would think somewhere within day 3.
What about top 4 rounds? Do you think Louis could be in play or one of the other more higher pedigree options? Because you're right, it is a really strong off-ball linebacker class.
I think I don't think you can discount it. No, I'm not going to sit here and speak in absolutes that says if a guy like Kyle Louis was on the board in the 4th round for the Steelers, I think he definitely becomes. Cause look, some people have him as like the number 3 or 4 off the ball linebacker in this class. So once again, it depends on I think utilization is key with a guy like Kyle Louis. But I mean, you got to have guys, linebackers that can cover in the NFL, and I think he's definitely one in this class that can do that.
If he was taken, say, in the 3rd round, 4th round, who might become odd man out in that inside linebacker? I know obviously those things would get figured out in training camp, long ways to go, the preseason, but you have 6 at that point. Louis, you would assume, is going to make it. Who doesn't?
I think right now from where it sits is Holcomb or Malik Harrison, and Harrison's got the higher contract, and Holcomb not that you can't cut him because you signed him to a 2-year deal, but Harrison, I wrote this in my salary cap update yesterday. I think of all the players under contract right now, with the high cash slash cap charge for 2026, Malik Harrison's right there and has been right there in the scope right now, so to speak, moving forward into this off season. So I would lean towards Harrison.
Could it be one of those situations where if you draft an inside linebacker in the 3rd, 4th round, you go cut Malik Harrison the Monday after the draft, one of those veteran who gets cut right after the draft, which we see with a couple names each year, it seems like?
Well, here's the thing too. This team's not going to be really pressed for that late cap space until late. So you could theoretically, in case of injury, 'cause, Holcomb obviously has had the injury. Yeah, Harrison's a guy you could theoretically probably carry all the way up
Mhm.
until the final cut downs.
Yeah, there's no penalty, there's no roster bonus that's gonna incur that's gonna create an issue there, but maybe just out of respect of the player, if it feels like the path to the roster's not there, they re-sign Holcomb for a reason, they have some sort of plan and vision for him, so you could keep them all, obviously let them just all compete, then cut Harrison during cut downs, but that might be at least one scenario to consider where you just say, "Harrison, the path isn't really there, you got a lot of competition, you probably won't make it, we're gonna cut you loose here and let you go find somewhere else."
All right. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so Louis again, not counting with the 30-man allotment. One of 2, I think it's 2 local visitors have come in so far, and Khalil Dinkins, a tight end from Penn State, and now Louis from Pittsburgh, hosting apparently at least one more player on Friday, a really interesting name, not been confirmed by the team or anybody else who may be coming in for a visit, but we got to talk about this guy. We've talked about him before a little bit right around combine time, Dave. North Dakota State quarterback Cole Payton. And Thursday, started out with us and you actually, credit to you, Dave, for this spotting 2 members of the Steelers personnel and coaching front office staff at the North Dakota State Pro Day on Thursday. That was area scout Jim Ward and quarterbacks coach Tom Arth. And he certainly was there for Cole Payton, who went through his workout. By all accounts, was a strong and impressive workout. He spoke with reporters after practice and said, "I'm flying out to Pittsburgh tonight for a visit." So we assume that'll be happening today on Friday. So Cole Payton, a small school sleeper, really interesting background and body type, a bit of a project, but interesting name that some draftniks are buzzing about on Cole Payton in Pittsburgh, certainly showing interest.
Yeah, I think that was our first positional coach, right? To spot, at least actually spot, on the pro day circuit. Is that correct?
First and only so far that we know of, yes.
All right. Now look, all due respect to Bryce Lance, who's probably going to be drafted ahead of Peyton there, a talented wide receiver out of North Dakota State. So there was a reason, obviously, for the Steelers to show up there. Cole Payton, look, you did the homework on him, I think, a few weeks ago and had the scouting report up on him. 1 year, technically, I guess, a 1 year starter at North Dakota State, left-handed, got nice size to him, a nice build to him. I've seen some comps thrown out there because of his running style to Josh Allen. He's a guy that you can actually design part of your run game around. I believe he needs to be in a pro system and work with a quarterback a heavy quarterback focused room, if you will. Mike McCarthy, obviously, and his kind of quote unquote quarterback school would make a lot of sense when it comes to that. But this is a guy that I sound like Chris Collinsworth there. This is a guy. Here's a guy. He seems to drop his if his first read's not there, seems to drop his eyes and will automatically be looking to make hay with his arm. I think he does have some arm strength. I think this guy just needs a real good college a college or a pro system quarterback coach and head coach to take some time to work out some of the kinks in his mechanics and all, and potentially maybe what he sees and all. Now, I think he did work under center quite a bit at North Dakota State there, so at least he's got that going for him. Not afraid to throw over the middle. Once again, I like his arm strength. Interesting when you look at these left-handed quarterbacks because there's not many of them to kind of compare each other to. Has Mike McCarthy even worked with a left-handed quarterback of notable, name, I guess, at this point? So that's always an interesting conversation there. But I would imagine he's going to be outside of the top 5 when it comes to this year's quarterback class of being drafted. But there is some ceiling left to him, I think, that has not been hit yet. So I definitely think he comes into the NFL as a guy that needs some developing for sure.
Yeah, he's certainly a project, an interesting one, and there's a lot of tools and traits there that are interesting. And you're right, he's probably gotten some poor man's Josh Allen vibes from his overall frame, 6'0", 232 pounds. So a big quarterback, ran 4.56 at the NFL Combine, turned some heads there. You see him out of structure on tape, making plays. You see the power, running over guys, hurdling guys even occasionally. There are going to be some in athleticism alone, and just athleticism, there are certainly some comparables to Josh Allen. He's a guy with a live arm, but there's just a lot of work to do with him mechanically in terms of his arm slot being lower, in terms of his overall accuracy, which is hampered and negatively impacted by some pretty sloppy mechanics, and just a guy that has not played. He's played the position his entire career, but he was used as really a wildcat quarterback runner. I know I mentioned this when I spoke about him around combine time, just to kind of illustrate the point. He has more career rushing attempts than he has passing attempts. 287 rushing attempts, 282 pass attempts. And so that kind of just tells you how he was used. And he was the backup to Cam Miller until Miller graduated, and then Payton took over the job in 2025. So he's a left-handed quarterback. You're right. I don't think McCarthy has worked with one that I'm aware of, at least in terms of a notable name. Kellen Moore was left-handed. He did coach alongside Kellen Moore, for whatever that is worth. But I'm just looking at the did he coach Doug Nussmeier? I don't know if he coached Doug Nussmeier. They worked together, I know. Doug Nussmeier apparently was a left-handed quarterback, looking at the Wikipedia list of notable lefties. So he's at least been around some former quarterbacks in Nussmeier and Moore who were lefties. I guess Payton's probably destined to go to Atlanta because they're collecting left-handers down there, right, with Penix and Tua. So my comp on Payton, Cole Payton was Tim Tebow. Both left-handed quarterbacks, both similar frame, good athletes, high character type of dudes. I think Payton's arm is better than Tim Tebow, so this is not exactly a one-to-one comparison, but it's about as close as you can get with Payton's skill set being kind of unique. He had a real long snap to throw time at North Dakota State, 3.33 seconds. That was the second longest of any quarterback at the FBS or FCS level last year, according to PFF. They did grade him as their number 1 FCS quarterback. I know that out of structure play certainly influenced his long snap to throw times, but he's just a project. That is a thing to note. I'm sure somebody like McCarthy, as you said, with that background, and he's big on reworking and remapping mechanics, can maybe try to fix and improve Cole Payton. The physical tools are there, but to me, this guy has a long ways to go.
Why not put Bryce Lance on the plane to him to Pittsburgh last night as well? Knockout kind of two with one stone there. It'll be interesting to see because obviously Bryce Lance was is I don't know, top 10, top 15 wide receiver in this year's draft class and all. But yeah, interesting when you get back to Payton now because you couple that with Carson Beck coming in for a pro day. I mean, for a pre-draft visit as well too. You got a couple of guys that could potentially be early day three guys there in these two quarterbacks. So once again, how many picks will the Steelers end up making? And what does this mean? Is this protection in case maybe Aaron Rodgers decides to retire? Is this just due diligence of ahead of next year's draft class of making sure all your process is good when it comes to examining the quarterback position, give you something to compare to. We'll obviously find out in a little over a month here, but it is notable now that you have two quarterbacks from this year's draft class in for pre-draft visits.
Payton was also at the Senior Bowl. I'll have to check with Ross to see the evaluation on him. I don't think Payton stuck out in a real big way. I think it was Nussmeier.
Was the MVP though of that squad though, I think, for the game.
Squad? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know Nussmeier was the overall MVP.
Right.
And Payton got it for his side. Okay.
I believe so. I think I read that somewhere along the line there.
Okay. So, yeah, maybe he did have a decent showing. I'll have to maybe get with Ross to get his evaluation of Payton from the week down in Mobile, which is obviously important for those smaller school guys. I know North Dakota State is a powerhouse FCS team, but still playing up against the FBS competition for a guy that does not have a lot of experience playing the position was going to be important for him. Seems like a really quality guy, really good leader. The research that I did, he affirmed his commitment to North Dakota State, even though teams like Nebraska and Iowa State took a run at him late. He's stuck at North Dakota State, never transferred at all. Go back to his high school. Coaches praised his leadership, attending every single position meeting for the entire team. He was the Walter Payton Award finalist for 2025, lost out to Youngstown State quarterback Bo Brungard. So just really good year with Payton. There was certainly some potential. There were some draft nicks that loved this guy. I loved him less, but if you want to bang the table for the traits and the upside, and if you could do the Josh Allen route, which is the big thing that helped him in Buffalo, was remapping his mechanics and his, footwork and arm angle and all those things that really transformed Allen from a pretty inaccurate quarterback at Wyoming and early in his Buffalo career to being the elite MVP that he ended up becoming. You could try to convince yourself that Payton could follow a similar track.
Yeah, looking back real quick here, Payton was named the national team MVP at the Senior Bowl after completing 5 of 10 passes for 72 yards and rushing for 22 yards in cold and windy conditions.
Okay, and North Dakota State, despite small school, has produced a lot of quarterbacks from Carson Wentz to Trey Lance to Easton Stick to Cam Miller, who was drafted last year, although I think Miller made a position change to receiver. That was my thought, too, with Payton. Could there be a position change in his future if quarterback doesn't work out? I could see running back or tight end. I think even his high school coach once remarked maybe he could play in the NFL as a different position, a linebacker or something like that. Obviously, teams will try him as a quarterback first, and that's probably fair to see what you can get out of him at that important position. But it's just going to take some time for this guy. But obviously, he's not going to be a first-round pick, and so he gets a chance to sit and learn, and hypothetically could be in a room with Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph and getting tutelage from Tom Arth, from Mike McCarthy, that could do him a lot of good.
And he played in North Dakota where it's cold too, so he's got experience with the weather for whatever that's worth.
Do they play inside though? I think they're in a dome. I'm looking at my clips here. I think North Dakota State, my knowledge on North Dakota State facilities is slim, but did they play inside? I'm sure somebody is screaming in the comment section right now about.
Well, I know enough of their games up in that area. They play in the Fargo Dome. That's right.
It's a great name, the Fargo Dome. But he's from Nebraska. He's North Dakota State. He can probably deal with the cold pretty well. And he's a big guy with big hands, 10 1/4. So I think he'll do just okay in the cold. He's probably one of those AFC North quarterbacks that Omar Khan talks about.
There you go.
All right, so Payton in for the visit today, at least according to him. We'll see who else comes in, if that gets announced by the team or some of the beat guys. And we'll see who's going to be in Pittsburgh to talk to, because will Mike McCarthy, Omar Khan be at the Michigan Pro Day today? You would think they would be, although maybe Michigan doesn't have some of the top end prospects they normally do, at least at positions that could interest Pittsburgh. So will they hang back and talk to Cole Payton? Because if McCarthy and Kahn are in Michigan, then I'm not sure what Payton's going to get from coming into the facility.
Well, let's see. The Michigan Pro Day should be getting underway about right now, right? So maybe you get over there and take the jet back in time to talk to Peyton.
Yeah, you could. I don't know exactly the logistics. I know Peyton was flying in Thursday night, and usually those meetings get started pretty early on Friday, but you could probably rearrange the schedule a little bit. Or maybe, was it Texas last year where Pittsburgh flew down basically just for the pro day dinners, didn't even stay for the workout, and then flew back the next morning very early, a red eye or something like that. Maybe you could do that. Or maybe they won't even be at Michigan because, like, who are Michigan's top prospects that could interest Pittsburgh? I think Derek Moore, the edge, is their top guy. Probably not going to be high on Pittsburgh's radar. They kind of have some pass rushers. There's a couple prospects later round. So with a new kind of half regime, we'll see if the Michigan tradition changes or not. They didn't go to Clemson, so maybe they didn't go to Michigan.
Yeah, we'll know by obviously probably within the next couple of hours because if Mike McCarthy and Omar Khan show up at that should hit Twitter. I know Michigan's a little guarded with footage and all like that over the years. They like to reserve what is it, the Big Blue or Go Blue Network or whatever that they have. Generally it's hard to find a lot of good shots outside of anything that's shown on their own network, I guess.
Yeah, they are for some reason trying to guard these things like it's Fort Knox. I'm not really sure what the rationale there is. So sometimes it's going to be a little bit difficult to suss out who all is there and get some good footage and good reports. But I'm sure if they are there, we're going to know sooner or later. One other note from North Dakota State Pro Day, you mentioned Bryce Lance, certainly a worthwhile prospect. Also, there was Jack Strand. Got a couple comments about Jack Strand, who played at Minnesota State. Moorhead, he was at North Dakota State. They allowed him to participate in the workout, which is not uncommon for even smaller school guys to join some of these other pro days to just get a look and opportunity. So I know Strand has, potential, probably undrafted free agent, maybe a tryout guy. But given the fact that Peyton is coming in for the visit, it's pretty clear why Tom Arth went there to go see Peyton.
Agreed.
All right. The other player that we know has an upcoming visit at some point, not today, but sometime in April, according to him, is Germie Bernard, the wide receiver from Alabama. He had an interview on Sirius yesterday. One of our listeners pointed it out to us, and so we appreciate the hat tip, a tip of our hat to the reader that offered that information. We checked it out and verified that Germie Bernard is going to come into Pittsburgh with a visit in April. Potential second-round receiver, refined route runner, good production the last 2 seasons, so a name to watch if Pittsburgh passes on receiver in round 1.
Yeah, and Bernard, you get a guy that's moved around in the Alabama offense, can play outside, can play inside. Productive there. I think he had an average depth of target of 10.5 yards. I think that's for last season. Had an average air yards per reception of 7.8 yards. Let's see. What was the other metric that stuck out? First downs per target, 45.7%. Let's see. Yards per route run against zone, 2.12 yards. Man yards per route run, 1.52%, or 1.52 yards. An okay guy after the catch, I think. 6.37 yards after a catch per reception, which is actually pretty good looking at the list that I'm looking at here overall. So this is a guy that you can move around, good route runner, ran various amount of different routes I've seen on tape from him. Not afraid to work the middle of the field either. You can use him as a ball carrier. I think was used a little bit, some in some gadgetry type stuff at Alabama. And I think he has some punt return capabilities as well too. So he's not a first round guy, but I think he comes into play in this draft class when it comes to the wide receiver position, right around where the Steelers pick in the second round to the third round. So I think that's the sweet spot for him. I would call him anywhere between a top, 10 to 15 wide receiver in this year's draft class. And the fact that he's got the versatility and the speed might bump him up more towards the top 10 area than the 15 area.
Yeah, I think he's going to be squarely in contention at number 53 if Pittsburgh does not take one at number 21. He led the team, Alabama, in receptions and yards last year, was second in touchdowns, had a line of 64 receptions, 862 yards, and 7 scores for the Crimson Tide, catching passes primarily from Ty Simpson. He ran 4.48 at his pro day at 6'1", 206. His overall testing was solid, not spectacular. 10.5 in the broad, 32.5-inch vertical. Good shuttle time, 6.71 3-cone. But yeah, our scouting report on him is a nuanced route runner, savvy route runner. That's how he wins overall. May lack some of the super high-end athleticism, but can play inside out. And yeah, he's a triple transfer. Started at Michigan State, went to Washington, and then to Alabama for the last 2 years. 22 years old, and from Las Vegas. Your neck of the woods over there, Dave. Hey, he actually went to Liberty High School. Is that where Darnell Washington Fautanu went from Henderson? They're from the Henderson area, I believe, are they not?
That sounds familiar. I'm not really up on my. I try to go to one high school game usually a year around here, but I'm not up on my high schools here in Las Vegas as I was in Pensacola there, especially when Pensacola was a powerhouse years ago for high school products and all. But I think he only missed. Didn't he just miss one game the last couple of years, Bernard? I think he's been fairly healthy as well too.
Yeah, I'm just reading a report here, our injury history, and great job by who wrote this, Jake Brockhoff, to get the information. He pulled out of the Senior Bowl citing injury reasons. In 2025, he missed one game with an undisclosed injury, and then in 2023, missed one game with an ankle, also limited him in the College Football Playoff Championship game against Michigan. So generally healthy overall, a couple of small things, nothing to worry about too much. And yeah, he went to the same high school, Liberty, as Troy Fautanu, who's also from Henderson. So I don't think they probably went to school together, but have just a little fun fact there for you guys.
All right. When you look at wide receivers in this class that have, the inside out versatility, I think he's definitely one of the, along with like Omar Cooper Jr. Trying to think of who else kind of got more of that inside out flexibility there. But he's definitely more of an all around guy when it comes to this class as far as wide receiver group goes.
Our comp for him was somewhere between Earl Bennett and Jarvis Landry. Obviously, Landry at the high end of things, Bennett more on the low end of things, but that's just kind of the type he is. Not going to run, not going to blow you away with the athleticism, but can certainly win over the middle, can run good routes, can get open, and certainly could have a lot of appeal to Pittsburgh in the second round.
How many punt returns did he have in college?
Just a couple overall. 3 in 2023. He had 16 kick returns, all coming in his first 2 seasons. So there's some minor value there. Maybe would get a look, but you're not drafting him for the return value side of things.
I did not look at his drop percentage either.
I don't think we have that in our notes. It probably was hopefully pretty good, it sounds like, from the report overall, but not entirely sure what it came in at. I know, like you said, his slot and out wide percentage was almost even, a little more out wide in the slot, but it's played inside and out, and even completed 2 passes last year for Alabama.
All right, I've got 4 drops from Sports Info Solutions for his entire 4-year college career.
Wow, very good. That's, I'm sure, a really, really strong number relative to the rest of his peers.
All right, pretty decent combated catcher, I believe, if I remember, when it comes to him. Pretty good hands overall. I think he had a career average depth of target of 10.1 yards for his college career. And as you mentioned, MSU, Washington, and then Alabama, right?
Right, that was his path. Actually, apparently committed to Washington, initially coming out of high school, decommitted, went to Michigan State, then went to Washington, then went to Alabama. So just the world we live in today. So that is up to 4 known receivers Pittsburgh has brought in or will bring in, reportedly. Jeff Caldwell from Cincinnati, Kendrick Law from Kentucky. We mentioned Denzel Boston having an upcoming visit with Pittsburgh, correct?
Yeah, I think we did, and we talked a little bit about him not running the 40 and all. I think either last show or the show before last.
And then Bernard as the fourth. And so we're seeing the trend line towards receiver. No surprise there. Two quarterbacks, Carson Beck and Cole Payton. One offensive lineman, Markel Bell. One defensive lineman, James Thompson Jr., and a pair of corners in Ephesians Prysock and Chris Johnson. Should also mention, according to Tony Pauline at that Georgia Pro Day, Pittsburgh had a dinner with Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver from Georgia. We were just talking about him at that Georgia Pro Day. I'm sure they probably met with other people too. They usually have these dinners with more than just one individual, but we don't know the other names for sure. But Branch, a confirmed dinner with the team.
I believe also maybe it was the Alabama version, or not the Alabama. The what school is that? Oh no,
Georgia?
Georgia. The Georgia Scout thing, I believe had no. That was Alabama that showed Mike McCarthy and Omar Khan talking to who's the linebacker there? Allen, CJ. Allen.
He plays at Georgia.
Okay, I'm getting them confused there. Okay, they have a picture up of the Steelers, I believe, talking to him at getting my pro days mixed up here. Where was the Steelers just shown at?
They were just at Georgia. I'm sure they were talking to CJ Allen. I think there was also
he's
reports.
The one.
Yeah, they had talked. Go ahead.
There's a picture of not that it means anything, but it was one of the few still shots that I saw of Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy actually talking to a prospect there. It was a still shot of Allen.
Okay, gotcha. I know they also have some reports, I think, from Tony Pauline about one of the running backs there. They met with them. You never quite know what meeting with a prospect means. Is that dinner? Is that just a conversation on the side? Is that all due diligence? It's all worth noting and filing away, but the pro day dinner with Branch is certainly a little more extra next step in terms of having some real quality time talking with him. Another potential round 2 guy, a space player, a guy that did not have a big ADOT last year, was really line of scrimmage, go make a play in space on those swing passes, screen passes, but an exciting prospect with some good tape out there.
All right,
Dave. So I'm not even sure where to go from here with kind of all the names on the list of the pro day or pre-draft visitors coming in. Anyone else you're watching or hoping they bring in, or any other kind of reaction to all of the recent news?
Well, what are we, about a third of the way through on the pro day visits? I mean, pre-draft visits at this point?
Yes, we got 10 out of 30.
All right, and they've been fairly good about reporting those. I would expect Omar Cooper to be in. I would expect a handful more, probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 more wide receivers probably in for visits here. Interested to see what some of the interior linemen start shaking out to be coming in, moving forward. Corners, safeties, those kind of things here. So, we got a good basis here, the first kind of third in the door there. So it'll be interesting to see which way the rest of the 2/3 of the visitors look like here.
If you had to call your shot, and I told you with my crystal ball that one of these 10 names who have been brought in or have a visit scheduled that we know of will be a Pittsburgh Steeler, which of these 10 no names has the best chance of becoming a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Read them off to me again.
Quarterback Carson Beck, quarterback Cole Payton, receivers Jeff Caldwell, Kendrick Law, Denzel Boston, Germie Bernard, offensive tackle Markel Bell, defensive lineman James Thompson Jr., and cornerbacks Ephesians Prysock, and Chris Johnson.
I would lean on that list of most probable to be. I think Thompson really fits into some mock drafts.
Yeah, he does.
I know it's one of the less sexier names there, and then I'd probably put maybe Chris Johnson next.
You think where would Chris Johnson? He would be round 1, round 2. Where do you
probably
think he
round
could fit
2?
in?
Probably round 2.
Okay.
I could see him potentially being on the board there. I could maybe from just 10 names there. Push come to shove, I could see that being my second selection.
I know he'll have some competition, or Pittsburgh will have some competition, but a lot of smoke on Cole Payton, and you never know what's going to happen on draft day. And I have a hard time trying to figure out exactly where he's going to get drafted at, Cole Payton, but there's a lot of smoke on him. Pittsburgh doing that kind of homework on a small school guy. They had some of that with Oladokin, even though he'll be a later round pick, where Payton is ultimately selected. Where do you think Payton is going to go? I'm kind of, I think he's a later round guy, but I've heard some buzz day 2, late day 2. So third, fourth round, you get 3 of those third round picks there. Could you use one on quote unquote taking a flyer on a developmental quarterback? Would you do that? Does that make sense?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I mean, you look at this class and you look at the guys with the upside overall. I could see him as a fourth round guy for a team.
You see him as a third round guy?
Fourth.
You think fourth? Okay. I could see third for a team just want to make sure they get this guy in a weak quarterback class. I know quarterbacks, the NFL has maybe smartly reached for quarterbacks less. We saw quarterbacks slide past expectation last year. That's become a little more common. Go back to the Kenny Pickett draft class where a lot of guys went later than conventional wisdom and pundit wisdom told you. But there are some really interesting traits there. You had 25 teams at Fargo, which does not happen often. Peyton was not the only guy there, but certainly a notable draw. I'm skeptical of Peyton a little more so than probably others. But if you are going to take a guy, I've said you want to draft a guy with that, with some upside, with some real traits that can be developed and molded, as opposed to a Carson Beck who kind of is who he is at this stage of his college career. I think Peyton's the type of guy that you want to target. We sit there and say this guy needs some time to be taught and to learn the position and hone his craft. But if we can fix all that and teach him all of that, there's a real big reward on the other side. That's the type of guy that you want. That's the type of guy Peyton is.
Look, I would have bet you dollars to donuts last year that Will Howard would have went somewhere in the third or fourth round, and I definitely would have bet you dollars to donuts that Shadur Sanders would have went before the fifth round and before Dylan Gabriel there. So it all depends on. All it takes is one team, or all it takes is for several teams to pass on you. So that where I have him slotted right now as far as Peyton is probably fourth round.
Okay. Yeah, that would be, I think, the ideal thing. I wonder if Pittsburgh at pick 99 says, let's make sure we get this guy if we do have interest, so no other team tries to swoop in. And that lull between day 2 and day 3, somebody decides, let's go trade up and try to go get Cole Payton. So we'll see. I think he'll be one of the more interesting players in the draft, especially at quarterback.
Now, look, once again, if this team drafts a quarterback at any point talking about the Steelers at any point this year, and specifically ahead of round 5, that does not, and if there's a lot of ifs here, and if Aaron Rodgers comes back, or if they go out and get God knows who else outside of Aaron Rodgers, then that does not bode well for a guy like Mason Rudolph.
No, it wouldn't, because you would obviously anticipate Rodgers or veteran equivalent to make it, Howard to make it, the draft pick, assuming they are, like you said, top 4 rounds to make it, and then Rudolph may be getting the squeeze. I know that puts you in the situation, like you said, where you may have 2 backups to Rodgers who've never thrown a pass before in a regular season game. Howard's yet to throw one in any stadium, but that'll hopefully change by the time week 1 opens up with the preseason action. But Pittsburgh, where you just say that's the cost of needing to invest in the position and try to find some upside options.
That's one of the things that I keep going back to, that I think I struggle the most right now, especially still being in the 90% camp of Aaron Rodgers coming back here. Has Mike McCarthy, throughout his head coaching career, ever gone into a season with 2 backups who have never thrown an NFL pass?
I'm not even sure where to begin searching that. I know in the years, you said going into a season, so probably not. I'd have to go down a rabbit hole to try to find some of those things. I know that when Dak got hurt in Dallas a couple times, they were playing kind of quarterback roulette, and I'm sure they didn't have great backup options there. I don't know if their backups had experience or not in terms of plan Bs, plan Cs. I know Cooper Rush, was coming to his own and kind of getting some reps out there. But I'm doubtful that ever happened with Mike McCarthy.
I mean, is that the best plan when you got a 40-something-year-old guy in Aaron Rodgers, obviously not very mobile at this point of his career, and for an organization like the Steelers that screams that they every year is a year to compete for a championship, that doesn't scream like the best plan to go into a season with Aaron Rodgers and then 2 quarterbacks who've never thrown an NFL pass in a regular season game.
But if you like Will Howard, and if he does well in the summer, enough to apparently beat out Mason Rudolph in this scenario for a spot, then that tells you something about Will Howard. And if you like him, then make him your backup.
And if you draft a quarterback even in, let's say, round 5 or higher, you're more than likely not going to cut that guy. Round 7, we've obviously seen this team do it with Oladokin, later round quarterbacks. But and then the way they've talked up Will Howard makes you believe that he's not going anywhere this offseason. So I mean, if you draft a quarterback round 5 or higher, then 2 of those quarterbacks of your 3 on this roster are going to be Will Howard and the new kid.
I'm putting carts well before horses here, but just to give a different idea, I know this is going to sound a little atypical, and it is. What about 4 quarterbacks? Why do you not keep Rudolph, Howard, Rookie, and Rodgers to protect yourself and still have eyes towards the future?
It just feels like malpractice with you dealing with 53-man rosters.
I get that, and I understand the competitive disadvantage. If you have 4 quarterbacks, most teams are half the league carries 2, and so they have extra guys who could help out on game day. But it is kind of funny. We talk about quarterback being the most important position in sports, and yet teams want to carry only 2 on their 53-man roster. It's the most important position in sport. Let's be super light at the position with very few options if somebody gets hurt. It's kind of a contradiction, I think. So, again, I don't know who the last team to carry 4 quarterbacks were. Pittsburgh really carries 3 on their 53, but if you carry, most teams carry 4. Like Pittsburgh carries 4 in total if you count 53 in practice squads. If you just carried 4 and 0 in the practice squad, you're still carrying 4. Granted, an extra spot on the 53, which is important and is not the same, but I think you can make the case for it at the very least.
I don't until we see rosters expanded across the NFL, which is something I'm for. I'm sure the NFLPA is going to push hard for that in the next negotiation. By the way, what do you think about? Don't mean to go 180 here, but what do you think about the decision for Treader to come back as being president of the NFLPA? Oh,
Yeah, I
what a
don't.
horrible decision.
What I think I know why you say that, but why do you say that?
Just because, obviously the kind of the scandal stuff behind him most recently, and then on top of it, that guy seems to be doesn't seem 100% pro player, seems to have been a little bit in, on owner's side with a few things there. It just, why go that direction with such an important, I can understand if you're in the middle of a CBA at this point right now, but I mean, you got the whole 18 game thing coming up here, and we talk every time CBA negotiations come up, how NFLPA does not seem suited on their side to do a good battle. It just all of it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think the union just needs new leadership and a clean slate, and it seems like they're running it back with some of the same old, which is not going to serve them or the players well. So I understand that, but that's all for them to figure out. You got the ref situation. That's a whole nother thing. Could replacement refs make a return in 26? God help us if they do, but that's being at least some public pressure from the NFL. Let's bring it back to Pittsburgh. Here's some news coming in, Dave. We have our list of pre-draft visitors today, which is exciting. We get that on air. Cole Payton is one of them, as he indicated. 3 others coming in for a visit today. Washington cornerback Tacario Davis, Texas Tech linebacker Jacob Rodriguez, and Georgia Tech guard Keylan Rutledge. And so Rodriguez, one of the most prolific and impactful and productive players in college football last season, real checks every box. He's got good size. He tested well. He's super productive, really toolsy guy. So interesting there. Rutledge is athletic, but a mauler and just kind of likes to put people into the ground, has the good mentality, but he's got some burst and he's not just a big lug out there. And Davis was one of the opposite corner of Ephesians Price Sock in Washington. I actually just started writing the report on Tacario Davis, a big, long cornerback that might have a little better hands, a little better ball skills than Price Sock, but a little stiff and maybe not quite as fluid as you would like overall, but bringing in both Washington cornerbacks for this pre-draft cycle, and Price Sock earlier, and today Davis.
Yeah, I need to learn more about Keylan Rutledge out of Georgia Tech there. But obviously watched a little bit of Jacob Rodriguez, know more about him than I do Tacario Davis. Interested in reading your report on him, but he is of those pair of Washington corners that we talked about, I think, all the way back to the combine there. Not surprised. He's a big kid as well, too, I think. And look, Jacob both Rodriguez and Tacario Davis are going to be on a lot of teams' pre-draft visits list, I would imagine there. So this team's looking for a day 2 off the ball linebacker. Rodriguez certainly does check a lot of those boxes there.
He does, and Davis goes just under 6'4", $194, 33 and 3/8 inch arms, so super big, long avatar type of cornerback Pittsburgh has been collecting in that mold of Joey Porter Jr., but even taller than Porter is, and ran 4.41 at the combine, 37-inch vertical, 10.3 in the broad. Is he truly that kind of athlete on tape? When I've been watching, I don't think it's quite as impressive on tape. Production was still light overall. During his career, transferred up from Washington. He was at Arizona to begin with, like Prysock, who was the head coach there? Was it Jed Fish? And they went up to Washington, and they followed him up there. So, interesting guy. I'll have to report on him. Funny enough, just happened to be working on that before this news came out. Rutledge, my notes on him that I did back in January with the report on Rutledge. Aggressive player who drives and finishes, plays with old school mean streak, solid straight line athlete with burst out of his stance, effective puller, able to climb to the second level to reach linebackers, works to refit hands and pass pro. Some of the negatives: prone to falling off blocks in space, inconsistent first contact, stiffer player struggles to change directions while on the move, pad level can get a little upright, and he was basically just a right guard in college, although very experienced with almost 3,000 snaps at right guard. And interesting story. I know Ross McCorkle, I think, spoke with him at the Senior Bowl. He was in a car accident in 2023, nearly had to amputate his toe, but they ended up saving it. He came back and ended up, being able to fully recover from it. So interesting guy there, but certainly a good athlete, basketball player, has some of those basketball feet and some of those traits translate, but a mauler who loves to finish blocks.
All right, 4 pre-draft visitors today. Does make you kind of wonder if we'll see Mike McCarthy and or Omar Khan at the Michigan Pro Day today.
Yeah, you might think they're gonna hang back and be in Pittsburgh. And I know these guys could meet with positional coaches instead, but Payton already met with Tom Arth, so who else would he meet if he came back to Pittsburgh? So I guess we'll just wait and see. Maybe one of them went. Maybe McCarthy went, or just Khan went. Maybe they sent positional coaches instead. We'll just have to let you know probably by Monday.
All right. Good list.
That's an impressive and interesting list of names. Really, our athletic list. You look. I don't know what the RAS scores across the board for those 4 names were, but they're probably all in the 9s. Payton, Davis, Rodriguez, and Rutledge. I mean, just in terms of athletic profile, size profile, those guys are really interesting.
All right.
All right, Dave. Anything else to talk about today?
Salary cap. How about that?
Oh, yeah. You had a salary cap update go up yesterday, so give us an update on that.
All right, we've got all, I think, the outstanding contracts in at this point. Obviously, there's been a lull with Steelers activity as far as re-signings and outside signings go. At this very moment, I have the Steelers, and this includes the offseason adjustment we recently talked about of the cap credit of a little more than $3.65 million, and it includes the carryover space from 2025 of nearly $17 million. I have the Steelers right now in real time at almost $30.6 million in 2026 salary cap space. And that's obviously more than enough to work with throughout the rest of free agency and in through the draft and getting the rookie class signed and all. Now, when you move past the draft, obviously, you've got the things to think about, like the offseason workout bonuses, the draft class and undrafted free agent pool offset, the end of the rule of 51 with the 52nd and 53rd player, the practice squad, buffers for like injury settlements, players on IR, then the age-old in-season injury replacement fund, which I have set at $7 million, which is negotiable probably by a couple of million either way. So that gives, just in theory, and this is not a hard number, of effective usable salary cap space, at least according to my projections, at right around $9.8 probably 9.8 to, I don't know, 10.8 million, maybe even as high as 12 million, depending on the injury replacement fund buffer right around in there. We're still waiting, obviously, on Aaron Rodgers, and if they sign him to a 1-year deal, what that cap charge would look like. Might this team consider 2-year deal with him and having a void year in there to help alleviate some of the cap space issue or cap cost in 2026? That's yet to be determined there. But this team overall obviously can still go to, even though it's his roster bonuses pass, they could go to Pat Freiermuth and restructure that to free up a little bit of cap space. And then you got the big banks for restructure bank accounts of DK Metcalf and TJ Watt you could go to free up even more salary cap space should the need occur. And as we talked earlier in the show, Malik Harrison sits square in the sights as a guy that could potentially be cut, save you $4.75 million in salary cap space ahead of roster displacement. And a lot of people will still insist that Patrick Queen and Jalen Ramsey could be potential cuts at some point, even though their roster bonus due dates have come off the calendar at this point. So I think you just look at it short term here. Nearly $30.6 million in salary cap space is a lot of salary cap space to work with at this point. Obviously, there's a big question mark about Aaron Rodgers and what that cap charge would look like when you move forward into effective usable salary cap space. But this team, as expected, is in fine shape of how they can move forward with their salary cap situation. I think the biggest question is will this team have to restructure any contracts moving forward into the offseason? More notably, when you look at guys like DK Metcalf, well, all three of them at this point, Freiermuth, DK Metcalf, and TJ Watt. If any restructures of those guys were to happen, it feels more than likely those are things that would happen after the start of training camp.
Yeah, it seems like they'll do that only if necessary. I know we also have to think about the extensions that could happen. How much cap could a Porter extension eat into for this year? I know those first year cap charges are lower typically relative to the size of a contract, but how much could his cap charge increase on a big money extension?
Well, when you look first and foremost that because of the proven performance escalator this offseason, Joey Porter Jr. already had his base salary increased to almost $4 million, and his salary cap charge right now for 2026 is $4.922 million and some change there. So an extension with him, let's see, it's not going to increase much. I would say at most maybe 2.5 million.
Is that it?
Yeah, somewhere around there, because what you're going to do is you're going to take his base salary down. Obviously, you have let's say the signing bonus is I don't know, let's just throw out there 20 million, and then you prorate that out over 5 years. That's a $4 million charge that way to go along with the nearly $1 million proration charge he has on the books now. So $5 million in proration. If you dropped his base salary down to the minimum of probably a little over $1 million, you have a ending salary cap charge of probably around, I don't know, 6.2 million after an extension, more than likely. So you're talking about anywhere from, I don't know, 1.3 to $2 million increase at max for his salary cap charge to go up as part of an extension. So not a lot's needed, I don't think, to get him extended when it comes to increasing his salary cap charge for 2026. Even though that's going to be one of the largest extensions the Steelers have this offseason, right?
Right. That's what I was asking. So that's good to know that it really wouldn't impact it so much. And so even, considering that, and if they do, of course, multiple deals, the Boswell deal, maybe something with Darnell Washington, that'll add up, but it's not going to really eat into the cap that much, it doesn't sound like.
Right. And then, if you look at a guy like Darnell Washington, another proven performance escalator guy this offseason, his cap charge right now for 2026 is 3.8, almost 3.9 million. So, even if if the extension ended up being a 2-year deal, and let's say, I don't know, you gave him I don't know, $10 million signing bonus somewhere around there. So 3.3 plus his previous proration, 3.5, drop his base salary down to the minimum. I mean, you're talking about maybe a max post extension 2026 salary cap charge of not even $5 million. So you go up maybe about a million, 1.2 million there as far as his extension.
All right, so good to know. Good update there. Anything else to look for? Anything else that might be upcoming? I think Pittsburgh's kind of gotten past the point of some of these roster bonuses. I guess the Jalen Ramsey thing in August. On how do we frame the option bonus or explain that again?
All right, he's due. The decision on is whether or not to prorate the option bonus right before the start of the season. That option bonus amount is 7.4 million. To me, at this point, looking at the cap situation with all that they want to do, and look, now once again, I have his salary cap charge right now set at 17.229 million, and so does the NFL and the NFLPA and all like that, because option bonuses are assumed as being prorated until they're not. So if they chose not to prorate his option bonus of 7.4 million, then his salary cap charge would jump from 17.229 to 23.149 million. So you lose what, almost 6 million in salary cap space. So all signs point to, if Jalen Ramsey's going to be on this team come that decision time, that they will prorate that out there. So that's, and once again, that happens, I think, at the end of August, of when they need to make that decision on him. Now, once again, his roster bonus decision has already bypassed us, and that was a $2 million decision there. Additionally, 3.5 million of his scheduled $10 million base salary now becomes fully guaranteed. But obviously, if you trade him away, which would be the most, feels like, well, I mean, even if you cut him because of offsets and all, you're probably not going to lose it. You'll probably recoup that in offsets as well too there. So theoretically, could the team get a good enough offer as the offseason progresses, probably most notably either during the draft or at some point after the draft, of taking basically a $2 million hit on the roster bonus as far as dead money with Jalen Ramsey to move him. It's not unthinkable. It's just not a practice that the Steelers usually have when it comes to eating dead money. But the long and short of it, if they drafted another safety and had a good trade offer, it cutting him, trading him at some point is going to be tough, because it makes you wonder what team would want to come in and assume, let's see, at this point, I guess it would be $17.5 million cash charge on Jalen Ramsey, as long as all that was done before the option bonus was due. And I would imagine the decision on him, whether to trade or cut him, would be before the option bonus is due there. It's still not impossible, as I like to say.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that, but that's kind of one of the things to look for. It's a little ways down the road, but we'll see how many draft picks they make and what the cost of that is. But that's always good work. They always appreciate the cap update, and Pittsburgh seems to be in, for layman's terms, they are in good shape. Is that fair to say?
Look, I've learned over the years to say that every team's in good salary cap shape.
Sure, but relative to
Except maybe the Saints a few years ago there. But
they're good now. I think they finally got out of their cap hell.
yeah, and where they, when you look post Ben Roethlisberger and all like that, really post COVID, the last time this team really felt a crunch salary cap wise, I think, was during the COVID years there.
Which every team did in that
Right.
contraction that was impossible to predict. So glad to hear it. Good update, and we'll look forward to the next one whenever that time comes.
All right. Got that out of the way there. So shall we go to some emails? Is do we have anything on the Michigan Pro Day right now?
Let me try to check if any sort of updates are here, and not seeing much right now. Maybe something will come out later, but nothing of note that I'm aware of. So let's
All
get to
right.
some emails and close out today's show.
Who else have we spotted at the Pro Day circuit? Obviously, Cheaty out there, the West Coast at where was he yesterday? UC
He
or
was at
Cal?
Cal, where he went to
Cal.
school. He's a
All right.
Cal Golden Bear alum.
All right. And who else have we spotted recently? We obviously went over the North Dakota State. Who else has been spotted?
Let me pull up the tracker. If you guys haven't realized, there's a tracker for the pro days and the pre-draft visitors up on Steelers Depot. Just search tracker. They're often sticky to the top of the page. You had spotted Jared Heiberger, an area scout at the Memphis pro day. A couple linemen are interesting. Travis Burke's got a lot of injury. Chris Adams also notable. And then Utah, Pittsburgh had somebody there. I think it's director of player scouting, Max Gruder. I've yet to be able to fully confirm that, but I'm pretty confident in saying it was Gruder, and they got a bunch of players there, a couple of potential first-round linemen in Spencer Furneaux and Caleb Lemieux, also Lander Barton, Spencer's brother, I believe it's his brother, Logan Furneaux, an edge rusher, and a tight end as well. So those were we saw scouts yesterday.
All right, let's get to some emails here. Brian Tellini, good morning, Dave and Alex. Please rank and discuss Zachariah Branch, Casey Concepcion, Antonio Williams, Germie Bernard. Oh, excuse me. Branch is growing on me, he says, and the more I watch, the more I see someone who is still fairly raw as a route runner, but has a lot of upside. Am I crazy to see some Tyreek Hill in him? Yeah, we talked, I think, a little bit recently about Branch. Obviously, talked a lot about Germie Bernard today. Antonio Williams, I think that's the Clemson product that's getting feels like I've been seeing a lot of buzz on him the last I think since the Clemson Pro Day took place. Casey Concepcion is an interesting guy in the fact that I think you look at how he was utilized in that offense. I think he's got a little bit of question marks about his hands. I know that the hot topic about Concepcion is about some of the drops and all with him, as is the average depth of reception and target. I've got to watch more on Antonio Williams. He's the one I think of these three that I've watched the least amount of tape on. I think of the four there, if you're looking at Steelers maybe specific after round one, I really think Bernard and Williams are potentially guys that really need a lot more attention here.
Yeah, I can't give you a concrete ranking right now, but I'll look at our scouting reports and tell you how we as a collective graded them. Now, these could be different evaluators. It's not all the same person, but Concepcion had the highest grade of 8.9 in our grading scale. And then funny enough, the other three all had the same grade of 8.3 for Branch, for Williams, and for Bernard. And so it's a little bit of kind of just take your pick, your flavor, and which guy just you like the best based on the skill set. Branch does have additional special teams value that could maybe tip the scales towards him. I liked Williams, that he plays bigger than his size, a lot of experience in the slot where Pittsburgh certainly could use some help, but there's probably no wrong answer there. Branch, again, is one of those guys that hasn't really run much of a route tree, and so I do take pause, especially compared to Bernard and Williams, guys that have that on tape already. Maybe Branch, like a Kendrick Law from Kentucky, is a better route runner than the system and scheme he played in allowed him to display. But I'd have a little bit of hesitation towards Branch just based off of that alone.
Let's see. I pulled up some more data on Branch this morning here. He had a air yards per reception last year of 2.2 yards. He had an average depth of target of 5.3. So he's clearly was utilized as more of an underneath. And look, you look at his size, obviously one of the smaller wide receivers, especially in the top end of this class overall. So, and we talked about Mike McCarthy and bigger receivers and just overall, Branch would probably be last on my list of the four that, now look, can he be Tyreek Hill-ish, I guess, is kind of the question. I mean, I get it because of the size and all like that, but make no mistake that Tyreek Hill was able to catch football down the field quite consistently as well too. And I don't think that's something that we've seen a lot of out of Zachariah Branch in college.
No, we have a bit of a projection there, so that would give me a little bit of pause, like I said, on him. But it's not a super high end draft class at receiver where there are your Malik Neighbors or Justin Jeffersons of the world, these super can't miss type of dudes. But it is a good and deep class, and I think the names we're talking about are reflective of that.
And I think him naming those four all together are kind of guys that are really in the same grouping of the second to third round area where the Steelers might be concerned.
Yeah, I think Concepcion might be in a tier above those guys, and our grades are sort of reflective of that too. But I don't know exactly how it's all going to shake out and who might slip if you get some other guys to go in the first round at receiver, Lemon, Boston, Tate. Tyson, those types of guys. Could that cause somebody like Concepcion to fall a little bit? But I think he'll probably be the first of that group to be taken.
If you told me to throw on one game for Antonio Williams this afternoon, do you remember which game that should be?
Well, I didn't write the report on Williams, so I don't know if I have a specific game that I watched. I can just look up maybe what game he was most productive in this year for Clemson, a team that obviously struggled and didn't always meet expectations this year. Let me just pull it up. I mean, his 24 season was better than what he did in 25, so you might even dig back into previous year tape. But it looks like against Duke, 10 catches for $142 and a touchdown, probably a good place to start. And a rushing touchdown.
Let me see what else. Game logs for him. I guess maybe more notable competition.
And then Duke won the ACC this year. Yeah. 24, Clemson beat Pitt, and Williams had 13 catches for $149 and 2 scores. So did that in Pittsburgh. So also a game to check out.
What did he did not play in 3 games. I think he pulled out of the Penn State game because of getting ready for combine and all, right?
Makes sense. I don't know for sure if he.
I'm trying to remember what his injuries were early on in the season there. He missed a Troy game and a Georgia Tech game.
I'll try to look it up. It should be in our report if it was at least publicized. Or Jim Hester wrote that report back in February. I'll check out his injury history. It was a right hamstring injury in the season opener against LSU, caused him to miss 2 games, and then missed the Pinstripe Bowl because of a shoulder injury, apparently not because of an opt-out. And then in 23, battled toe and ankle injuries that limited him to just 4 games. So there is a bit of a history on some lower body stuff with Antonio Williams. He's not a huge guy at 5'11", $187.
All right, gotta watch. I'll watch more of him probably throughout the weekend here. All right, Caleb Zaborski writes in, "Morning, fellas. When a team does not meet expectations for the season or even multiple seasons, the GM or the coach, and sometimes both, get kicked out the door to start fresh. In your opinion, at what point does the blame fall on the owner's feet? At the end of the day, they are the ones making the hire. How many franchises are handcuffed to bad ownership year after year, such as the Jets and Browns?" Just wanted Yin's thought on that. All right, that's a very kind of nuanced discussion for sure there. And you look at organization, and we don't know, obviously, the level of meddliness. Is that a word?
I don't think so. Meddling.
Meddling
of an owner.
Of an owner, especially when you get into the draft rooms and you got a guy like Jerry Jones, who after every game, the media runs down to a certain area to see what Jerry Jones has to say about a game. And obviously you don't hear from Art Rooney II until after the season's over with, generally, when it comes to him. My thoughts on all this is and look, I got to admit, if I was an owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, it would be hard for me not to be kibitzing. In other words, it'd be very hard for me to. I wouldn't go overboard like Jerry Jones. I wouldn't have press conferences after every game, but it would be hard for me not to meddle on a day-to-day, week-to-week, game-by-game type of basis there. I think when you have this kind of discussion there of where at what point does the blame fall on the owner's feet? I mean, it starts with obviously the hiring and giving these guys enough leeway to make their own decisions and having trust in them as far as the developmental and draft process. And obviously, the head coach decision plays highly in that. And, making sure these guys know kind of the limitations of what you're going to do cash spending wise and having to work in. A lot of people don't take that into account, especially when you deal with technically a small market town like Pittsburgh. You got a guy like Jerry Jones talking about how they're willing to spend whatever. Now they obviously are a bigger market, bigger pockets type of franchise where f the cap, f the cash spending. We'll do whatever we take. Where you have a organization like the Steelers that have to be more structured during a 3-year span of the CBA of how they go about spending their cash and being careful with cap responsibilities on top of it there. So. Look, I think after any 3-year run in the NFL, as an owner, you should know what direction that you're going in, and whether or not you can trust that run to continue. And if you go beyond that 3 or 4-year range, and things continue to not go well, then I think at that point you have to look at the owner of saying you got to know when to say when on pulling the plug.
Yeah, what's the old phrase? No one to hold them, no one to fold them. Yeah, it's hard to sit there and say, how do you divvy up blame for owner versus coach versus player versus scouts? Obviously, the owner has to wear it all and has to wear the results. That's the position of power. That's the position of leadership. And for the here and now, if the McCarthy hire goes awry, if the results aren't what Pittsburgh hoped they would be, which is to win a playoff game and then, of course, advance further than that, but at least win a playoff game and have something different for this franchise, then Rooney's going to be panned for that, as he should be. He'll be mocked for a retread for a team that's stuck in place that can't do something different and should have went with a young, up-and-coming coach. So that'll be the way Rooney gets judged. This was a move that clearly was his decision. I know him and Omar Khan worked together, but ultimately Rooney gets to decide who's the head coach and more importantly, who's not the head coach. So, we'll get this will be a chance for Rooney to truly be evaluated where you can look at him and say this was either a really good decision or a really bad decision.
If you were in Art Rooney's shoes, how tough would it be for you not to have at least, and look, we don't see the inside of the walls there, but how tough would it be for you to not have a heavy hand in like the draft process and the free agency process?
Yeah, I would, but that's just the background, of course, kind of being in it. And I think Rooney still has an influence on this team. It's not to the level of Jerry Jones, but I've said before, he sets the table and they just, he gives the coaching staff the grocery list and they got to go shopping for everything. That's kind of the setup that it works in Pittsburgh. But it just varies from owner to owner. Some owners are more hands off because they're business guys and they have other ventures that they're focused on, and football is not their life. And so, I think Rooney is not necessarily that guy. His business is football. It's little to the family business. But my perspective, of course, will be different than maybe someone else's perspective.
All right, so this afternoon, Art Rooney is not going to be on YouTube or watching tape cutouts. You don't think, right?
No, I mean, again, I know you're joking
You
about
would
that.
be, right?
Sure, I would be, which maybe would make me a bad owner for a lot of reasons. But again, I think Rooney still certainly has a pulse of the team and has an idea of what he wants a team to look like and what should change, and the team has to act accordingly. So Rooney's not sitting there burning midnight oil scouting Cole Payton, but if he wants a quarterback or if he wants the team to improve its run defense or improve the offensive line or add more receivers, then the team goes out there and follows those orders.
All right, and we've seen that over the years, especially when the January time comes around, and obviously this time was different because they had the coaching change and all like that. We've kind of picked up on the directives, right?
Right, very much intentional.
And then we've gone out and seen almost, especially in the Colbert days of this team, kind of overcorrect correct, if you will, the Artie Burns and go down the list where, damn it, we need a coverage guy, and just go back to kind of the directives we've seen this team go through in the past. Maybe the Najee Harris falls into that to some degree. Maybe the to some degree the Kenny Pickett thing, although that might have been Colbert just wanting to not leave this empty cupboard bare when it came to quarterback and all. But
I mean, even last year, Rudy said run defense must
Right.
get better. Derrick Henry, ran all over Pittsburgh in the playoff game 2 years ago. They, of course, beat the front seven. I mean, I think every year Rooney has an influence.
Do we kind of know what any of the, being as how there wasn't really the bat signal type session with Rooney this year? Do you have any kind of feel of what maybe that directive might be this offseason?
No, unfortunately, like you said, Rooney never ended up making a second trip to the media. He had the press conference with McCarthy's hire, and right after Tomlin resigned, spoke about where the team would go from there. But there was never the state of the union, sort of where Pittsburgh is at, even after the McCarthy hire. So you never kind of got that information. We can make our own inferences. We can assume receiver is going to be a need and need to get more offense going. That's why they hired Mike McCarthy and find a quarterback and develop a quarterback, all that stuff. But unfortunately, Rooney did not kind of give the tour and the state of the Steelers that he usually does.
All right. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute here. I don't know if this is a hoax or what.
Okay. What's it in regards to?
Yeah, it's Mean Joe Green, but I don't want to go there until we see.
Okay. Yeah, let's not.
Because a lot of people are tweeting this out, but I sure hope it's a hoax. So
Okay, well,
I'll just
keep
leave
an
it
eye
at
on
that. All right. Okay. Man, here's hoping that this is a hoax here. But anyway, all right, that got me kind of shook up there. Man, I hope this isn't true. I hope the internet's
Yeah.
just being
Well,
faulty here.
let's wrap up the show here and just in case, and start researching that. It may be a lot of hoaxes out there, so we'll just have to
Yeah.
wait and see.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Once again, if you want to send an email, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Today's Friday. We will be back on Monday, barring anything significant happening, signings or whatnot. And until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.